Representative Hinson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for holding this hearing today, and to our ranking member as well. Thank you to our witnesses. I want to tackle and kind of follow up on a couple of items that my colleagues have already talked about today, but really the barriers that are hindering our ability to strengthen and expand U.S. domestic drone manufacturing is what I'm concerned about, and I think that there is a lot of regulatory environment improvement that we could probably be making. We have to ensure that our supply chains are secure. That's absolutely critical for our national security. We talk a lot about the vulnerabilities that exist in the technology right now coming from China. We have seen, though, that stringent regulatory burden for manufacturing and purchasing drones here in the U.S. can be detrimental for our U.S. businesses, first responders. We've got a lot of farmers in Iowa who use these drones, and they're using Chinese-made drones right now. We're trying to change that, obviously, but when foreign companies are importing these into the U.S., we've talked about the price discrepancies there. Obviously, they don't have to follow that same regulatory challenge that we do. And I know, Mr. Bry, you already talked about this a little bit, but are there areas of U.S. regulation where you think we could make some improvements to help us really strengthen domestic drone production? What steps would you say need to be taken to help diversify those supply chains so we are not relying on chips from China for our manufacturing here?
Yeah, I really appreciate the question, Representative. I point to two things, and actually touching on something we talked about earlier, immigration policy. You know, we compete for the world's best talent in AI and robotics, and oftentimes we have to jump through all kinds of crazy hoops to get PhDs and master's level folks, many of whom have studied abroad in the U.S. to receive those degrees. And I think there may be a misconception. I mean, it's not a zero-sum game. Like, one brilliant scientist or engineer can create 10 or 100 or 1,000 other jobs by bringing good ideas to the table. So that strikes me as a real opportunity, especially at the high end for highly skilled people with unique skills. There's just a huge multiplicative effect in every industry, especially leading edge technology industries, by making it easier for those folks to come. And then the second area that I'd point to is our airspace regulation. You know, the airspace regulation set the rules of the road, so to speak, for drones. Historically, the U.S. has lagged a little bit behind in permitting more advanced uses of drones, being able to fly beyond visual line of sight, which is incredibly useful for large infrastructure inspection as well as responding to emergencies and public safety. I think we're making progress there, but the more that our own regulations reflect the next century of aviation, the more innovation we're likely to see in the U.S. and then have that innovation spread to the rest of the world.
How do you think the government can work to help offset some of the cost? Because, I mean, we've talked about that discrepancy. What more can we do there?
Well, I think the idea that's been floated of placing tariffs on Chinese drones, or increasing tariffs on Chinese drones, or at least enforcing the tariffs that are already there. I mean, the Chinese are also trying to get around these by going in through other countries, and using those funds to give end users the ability to purchase U.S.-made products of their own choosing, I think is one of the more natural opportunities that's going to leverage our strengths.
Yeah, I'm actually working on a bill right now to make sure they can't get around tariffs, so we're definitely trying to tackle that side of it. I think another place where I want to follow up on what you said, Mr. Paul, you talk about the three things that you think we need to work on: trade policy, domestic incentives, collaborations with friends. We know this is what China is doing, right? They're trying to continue to manufacture the raw materials, and they're partnering with other countries, and they're using diplomacy to do all of that. And I think that's, again, another attempt to directly marginalize the United States on the global market. So we talk about friendshoring, continuing to develop global coalitions here to strengthen our supply chains. Are there ways where you think we can leverage our existing relationships better for mutual benefit? What investments or partnerships do you think are really necessary to help us achieve this?
This is an excellent question. I think this comes to play particularly when we're talking about critical minerals, which are involved in semiconductors, in drones, and a lot of different applications. And there's a lot that we can be doing here to provide a better environment to get them through both purchases, regulation, regulatory reform, and what have you, and also seeking to leverage our allies' assets there. And I think that has to be a big part of the strategy. I think the other part with respect to shipbuilding where this is important is that in addition to direct shipbuilding, China's established a series of ports and logging, as I know the committee is very familiar, around the world, and we need to enlist our allies in pushback on that, because that's dangerous access to critical commercial infrastructure and data. around
Absolutely.
the world.
Well, and it's not just China, it's Russia too. With they're definitely eyeing. I had a chance to go to Ukraine in April, and they're eyeing obviously the port at Odessa too. So I mean, there's so much strategy involved with controlling ports when it comes to all of these technologies. So I'm out of time. I know we could talk about this for hours, but I appreciate you all being here. Thank you so much. I yield back, Mr. Chair.